Hi everyone. So if you're new to my videos, my work, welcome, and hopefully you enjoy what I'm about to share. And for those that know me well, that are on my platforms, that have maybe worked with me, know me for years, then welcome to this video, because I was thinking about you guys that have been seeing my posts on and off for the last few years and what I could share with you about that. So as you know, I went to Wales in my camper van, and not everybody knew I had a camper van, but I've started posting more about the festivals and the trips I've been taking since I bought it in 2024. And so I didn't just go to Wales for the scenery. And I was trying to explain to someone earlier that I knew I wanted to do something in August. It got a bit quiet. Like a lot of people, you work in schools, you have the time off. But I've been working for myself now for the last few years. So August is a quiet time anyway, and I thought, I've got the camper van, I want to go somewhere, where can I go? And I hadn't been to Wales, hadn't been to South Wales, I'd been to North Wales. And I knew I wasn't going for well, actually, I didn't know what I was going for. I wasn't going for anything in particular, but I just wanted to go out, explore, and just be in new places and spaces. So it wasn't just the scenery, it was for something much bigger. And that was building on what started years ago, when I hit burnout really and found myself wondering what next. So I've had burnout a couple of times. Anyone that's worked for local authorities, NHS, universities, schools, if you've not had moments in time where you've had some level of heading towards burnout, then you've escaped a lot of the stress in the system, because the system itself can be incredibly stressful, incredibly rewarding, but equally, I'm just checking that's where it is. So for years, for those who know me, know that I worked in mental health and wellbeing. And when I qualified, was initially working in schools, primary and secondary, working for the behaviour support department on programmes that Labour were funding at the time for preventing kids from being excluded. And we knew that kids who were excluded from school had a much higher risk of not completing education, and even entering into sort of pathways, timelines that weren't going to serve them long term. And then I started working a lot more with the professionals in the school staff, school head teachers, pastoral care staff, as well as the kids, working in groups, one-to-one, and then running transition programs to help them transition from primary school, secondary school, especially the more vulnerable kids. And really got a lot out of that, and I was able to be really creative. I sourced a lot of transition programs and design programs for those kids in the small groups, the big classrooms, and did that for 3 years. And then started working with families, and then running what was called a comprehensive CAMHS mental health service, where we had a team and we would support the schools who were concerned about the kids and the parents, and take direct referrals from GPs. So that's the sort of crux. And when I got to between 2011 and 2016, I was working a lot more operationally and strategically, when we were looking at big pathways, like a depression anxiety pathway. We had a mindfulness program, we had mental health in schools training. So we're working on a much bigger scale. And by about 2015, there was a couple of personal things that hit me really hard. And for the first time in years, I started to just struggle with the everyday aspect of working with a side of humanity that we see all the time when we do this work, whether it's in social care, education, psychology. And for years, I'd worked too hard, running those multiple projects, pushing myself to the point I hit exhaustion. And especially around periods when I qualified in 99 and I started working, I was working full time. I had 2 small children. I think they were about 11 and 7 at the time, and they were at school, and I picked them up from school. And like everybody, you're doing the shopping, the cleaning, working hard, and I was going to the gym 3 times a week. And I was on that all the time, and I was studying separately. And it's sometimes our nature, and I've got some colleagues and friends that also were like that. And you can do that for a while, but if you don't have the right rest, right nutrition, and the right level of holidays or time off when you're really sick, and the more responsibility you get, the harder it is to do that, you can end up at that phase of exhaustion. So I'd had a burnout already in 99, which hit me for about a year. And then, I was fine for a few years, and then started to experience burnout again. But in 2014, it was different. It was something different that was happening. And I think we hit a place in our career where you go round and round these cycles. And I had colleagues that go, "Oh, we did this in Every Child Matters. We did this 10 years ago. We did transition. We did that." And we started to feel that. And I thought, I'm either going to be one of those professionals that start getting really cynical in the system and go, Labour's always doing this and Conservatives that, and it gets quite political, as well as trying to manage all the changes that were going on, where you can have a really good department, but departments are failing Ofsted. This sort of crux of stuff. This fine line that you're always balancing. And I loved working with my colleagues and professionals, supporting them and problem solving and helping them tackle a lot of the issues that we were all part of. We'd have the multi-agency meetings, all that kind of stuff. But I was pushing myself to this point of exhaustion, but also sort of a more nihilist view. I was starting to get a bit, and I didn't know why. And there's a couple of things that happened that sort of pushed me to the edge, and I started saying, I don't think I want to do 5 days anymore. In fact, I wanted to do 3. I started to just get in my head this idea. Anyway, fast forward, I asked for voluntary redundancy in the July 2016. Meanwhile, thinking, I'd love to start writing blogs. Started working on a website, started writing blogs, which was funny considering the fact my spelling is atrocious. I've got some level of dyslexia. But back then, nobody was recording videos. Zoom hadn't happened. And it was just about me being able to express my ideas in a different medium outside of my day-to-day work. But I wanted to work 3 days a week. Anyway, I left and took the redundancy, had 3 months off. It was amazing. And it was about reconnecting with me going on little trips and travel. I had my friend's dog that I was looking after and totally enjoyed that. And so that gave me the option to really operate in that world of what I wanted to create. That was the vision that started at that point. And anyway, took another job. That was with NHS England late in 2016. Did that for a couple of years and all the stress and blah because I'm in those workplaces. And then took a job at university, overseeing a program that actually was in the process of ending, not beginning, which isn't great for personalities like me that are planners, initiators, and builders. So that had an impact, and I started. Anyway, I'd gone from 5 days a week, 4 days a week at NHS, 3 days a week at the universities. Now I take the 3 days a week. And so I was now spending a lot more time out and about. And then was really thinking about what long term, when I hit 50, what long term. And so contract came to an end at the university. And meanwhile, I'd had my car accident, which a few of you know about, a few of my close friends know. It really hit me on a massive scale, because now I was towards the end of what felt like towards the end of that career, and struggling to just really see what next. And now physically, mentally, everything, because I had PTSD. I didn't drive for 7 months. I didn't have a car at all. So even though I was working at the university, I was only going in 1 day a week, and I was getting on the train, and it was just, everything was difficult. And my boss kept saying, Mel, you need to get a car. And I was like, no. And I really was freaked out in cars. Anyone that was I got in their car at the time, taxis and friends, I was literally gripping on. You couldn't help it. PTSD is a whole physiological condition that operates outside of your brain being able to control it. Even if you've got tools and practices, you need often deeper sort of trauma work. Anyway, I've had that, and I've gone to see different therapists and done different things. And that's when I really got into practicing the yoga and the mindfulness meditation, using aromatherapy oils, all sorts of different stuff. And again, I've done other videos on that. And I started working for a private company on a great wellbeing program, and was able to use my creativity to design it. And it was aimed at women who'd experienced domestic abuse, and helping them move, not just move on, but stay moved on from toxic relationships and abusive partnerships. And so I did that, and I think that was an 18-month program. So I started to find my feet, but started to experience the stress again. And again, it was another project that you start doing, and you put in so much blood, sweat, and tears, and then it comes to an end because everyone's arguing about funding and all of that nonsense that goes on. So even though I was really passionate about the work we did, wrote a really expansive report, read all the research, argued the case for these sort of services, not just for my service, but these sort of services for women, you know, it sort of, as usual, falls on deaf ears. And there's only so much, I think, as individuals, we want to keep experiencing that. And at the same time, I was building up my, started on my website, and in early 2021, I was having conversations with a friend in America. We started doing podcasts on bridging psychology and spirituality, doing mini workshops. And then in early 2023, I'd contacted loads of areas because I was trained in yoga and meditation now to do wellbeing events. And that was when I started to get that that reconnection. Anyone that knows me that I did training with, I used to get such a buzz from delivering training, but now I'm delivering yoga and workshops in a field, in a marquee, in a sunny day. And so same sort of thing, but just totally different context. And it was great. So these are all the things that motivated me. So I was used to the tools that I'd been teaching others, grounding, self-awareness, shifting my own narrative to get unstuck. But like I said, midlife brought its own questions. And would I be left on the shelf? Was I waiting for inspiration? And that's when I decided in 2023, hell no, I need to take action, any action to shift my life forward. And I had a really good mate at the time, was just like, Mel, just, you know, take a step. And that's when I contacted every wellbeing event that was being held in the country. So since then, my experiences have exceeded anything I could have imagined. And Wales was the latest step in this whole series, especially since I got my camper van, of going out there exploring and just seeing what happens, and you know, meeting the amazing people and having these experiences and facing steep hills and a dead van battery and my van breaking down and cold sea swims and stepping out into the unknown. But it hasn't all been like an Instagram post. And I'm going to share that on another one about some of the real challenges. Um, so you know, it's experiencing the joy, but also the deep anxiety that hits you sometimes when you're doing it on your own, and when your battery fails or something happens with the van, and how your brain sort of kicks in. So now in 2025, my work has been helping other people do the same. In fact, I went back to doing some individual work at the end of my last program. So early 2023 is when I started reconnecting with the way that I worked before, but redesigned it. So I do coaching, and I've got a sort of mentoring program. I've had a coaching program, group coaching, about people in transition, doing a 30-day program, which is on my YouTube page, and helping other people do the same, not just to reduce stress and boredom, but to connect with them, for them something deeper, and turning their pains into passion, into fuel, and creating a life for them that exceeds anything. And it's, you can't tell anyone what it's like to experience any of these things, but you can help them start to open up to the possibilities. So if you're at that crossroads wondering about your next chapter, what that could be, maybe it's time to find out. And you don't have to do it alone, but I'd love to hear your story. You know, if you want to work with me, that's great. Contact me on my email address, which I'll put in the link below. But it's about, who are you? What lights you up? What makes you feel good? What questions in the back of your mind about where you're at and how long you've been doing it? And does it feed and nurture you now, or are you in that bored and stuck cycle? And what do you do to alleviate that? Do you go on trips? Do you go exploring? And how could you add to that? And so, as you know, on my Facebook posts, I mostly post the trips I've gone to and the beautiful places and the festivals. But I thought, actually, a lot of people who have known me for a while don't know all the different things I've been doing since you last saw me. And I thought I'll share that. And the same on LinkedIn. You know, I'm aiming some of my learnings and psychology behind safety versus risk. You know, what happens when we step outside our comfort zone, or when we are hitting midlife or hitting burnout. How, as a professional, do we get through those things, and what tools can we use, and what helps, and whether it's a mind, body, or spirit connection, regardless of whether you're into spirituality or not. I'm very grounded, very real, in the way that I look at life. But also, to have life reignited, often we, especially when we get to midlife, we start to see it in the way that we were taught as kids, looking like, if you're from the UK, an episode of Last of the Summer Wine, and I was looking forward to midlife after watching that. I certainly wasn't. So You know, this is alongside this, I've also been doing the guided meditations that I'm still working on. I'm working with a guy at the moment to help me improve the quality of those, recording the stories on the road of the people that I meet. So I've got some podcasts coming up. A lot of it's on YouTube, but I'm going to start a Patreon site because I can put more aspects in there, sharing the real journey, not just the highlights, you know, at the moments of panic, challenge, and growth, and helping other entrepreneurs and healers and creatives make their own shifts and build up their own identity, their brand and business. So if you've ever wondered how to connect with your own roots or rewrite your old narrative or integrate the past and present into a stronger sense of self, that's the heart of what I'm doing, like I said, for me and other people. So hopefully you've liked this. Go to my YouTube page to see my Campervan adventures. If you're interested in the 30-day program or even just what I've covered in that, look at the 30-day program on YouTube. It's on the playlist and on the podcast section. I've got level 1, level 2, and I'm working on level 3 at the moment, and some separate workshops. So if you're interested in any of it, or you want to share some ideas about what you can develop and build on your own skills of working in education, psychology, where else have I worked? You know, in clinical systems, or how you integrate your spirituality, your clinical side, your sociology, your interests, because that's the realm we're moving into now, and it can be really daunting. Just as is that still on? Yes. Just as I was daunted getting on the road in my camper van, going down hills like that, that scared the heebie-jeebies out of me. And my next trip coming up, if you've got this far, I'm going to be going deeper into my ancestral heritage. Because for those who don't know, I'm multi-heritage. My mum was Scottish, dad was Irish Italian, my brother's dad is Dutch, and my kids are mixed, as in my their dad is British born Asian. So I've been looking at race, identity, and politics for a long time. And not everybody knows that because we don't always realise what's past the person, and the deeper dynamics of identity. So thanks for listening, and yeah, just leave me a comment. And I know some of you are definitely going to comment on here and will have listened to this. It'd be great to hear from as many of you as possible, because it'd be great to have an interaction, because you know me, you know what I stood for, and I've just filled in the blanks of what I've done sort of since 2016, because I'm coming out of the closet a bit. All right, speak to you soon.